So, picture this. You're a Viking, a Mayan, or an Egyptian. Not a history textbook version, but a real breathing human with a sword, a sun god, or a stone calendar on your side. You wake up one day, stretch your limbs, and step outside, only to find yourself face to face with creatures so wild, so massive, and so real, they make modern zoo animals look like plush toys. Forget dragons or sphinxes for a second. These were legit animals. Flesh, bone, fur, fang. And they lived, breathed, and vanished right alongside some of the greatest empires the world has ever seen. Let's start in the cold, ironclad world of the Vikings. And no, not the pop culture version with horned helmets and smooth battle chants. We're talking about the gritty, wild Norsemen who stared down nature like it owed them money. Aurochs, the Vikings' ultimate land beast. Most people think of Vikings as sea raiders, but long before they launched longships across the ocean, they were on land, trying not to get obliterated by a creature that made modern cows look like poodles, the aurochs. This wasn't just a big cow. It was a prehistoric linebacker with horns sharp enough to skewer a warrior clean through. Imagine an animal standing 6 feet tall at the shoulder, weighing over 2,000 pounds, and coming at you with horns the length of your arm. And remember, these weren't mythical. These were hunted, fought, and sometimes worshipped by actual Viking men. Archaeologists have even found aurochs' horns turned into drinking mugs, because apparently nothing says cheers like slurping ale from a beast that almost killed you. Great auk, the bird that forgot how to flee. Then there were the great auks, a bird that looked like a penguin, moved like a penguin, but lived in the North Atlantic and had absolutely zero defense mechanisms. These birds couldn't fly. They waddled around like tuxedoed bowling pins and laid one egg, on bare rocks. Vikings didn't need to hunt them. They just strolled into nesting grounds like they were picking produce. These birds were so easy to catch, they were eaten to extinction by the 1800s. One Viking necklace was even found adorned with 5 great auk beaks. Stylish? Maybe. Morbid? Absolutely. Forest elk, the moose with an attitude. Lurking deep in the icy woods of northern Europe was a creature that looked like someone mashed a moose and an elk together during a thunderstorm. The European forest elk, or as some scholars believe, the Skog's elk. This wasn't your average moose. This beast stood 7 feet at the shoulder with antlers that could span 6 feet across. That's wider than most dining tables. And these weren't shy, gentle giants either. During mating season, the males turned into territorial tanks. They didn't run, they charged. Fast, loud, and angry. Gray whales, the leviathans of Viking seas. But of all the animal encounters the Vikings had, none were more insane than facing down whales. Yes, actual whales. This was row your tiny wooden boat next to a 49-foot-long, 36-ton behemoth and try to kill it before it flips your ship like a pancake kind of energy. Atlantic gray whales were coastal wanderers, while slow feeders dragging their bellies across the seafloor. They were not easy prey. A single tail slap could obliterate a longship. Norse sagas even called them devilfish, but the rewards were massive. 20 tons of meat, blubber for oil, and bones for tools. British wolves, the fanged rivals of Viking settlers. Let's talk about wolves. The British Isles had their own apex predator, the British wolf. These weren't as big as timber wolves, but they didn't care. These wolves had been around long before the Vikings ever set foot on British shores, ruling forest from the Scottish Highlands to southern England. Even the word Ulvedale, that's Wolf Valley, still echoes in Old Norse place names. Berserkers, those rage-fueled warriors, sometimes they didn't wear bear skins at all. They wore wolf pelts. That's how close these two apex predators danced. Sturgeons, the armored river dragons. Fishing in Viking rivers sounds peaceful, right? Until you realize you're not pulling up a trout. You're wrestling with a sturgeon, a literal dinosaur of a fish. These guys were armored like tanks, 3 meters long. Over 600 pounds. Their bodies were covered in bony plates, their mouths like a vacuum cleaner designed for nightmares. Vikings crafted special spears just to pierce their prehistoric armor. European bison, bulldozers of the forest. The European bison. These beasts were forest bulldozers, up to 2,000 pounds with shaggy humps and tree trunk necks. They carved their own trails through forests, and Viking settlers, they followed them, literally. Bison paths became human roads, but hunting them, that was dicey. They didn't flee, they fought, charging through trees at 40 kilometers an hour, smashing hunters like bowling pins. Mexican grizzly bear, Maya's silverbacked nightmare. Let's now enter the jungles of the Maya. The Mexican grizzly bear wasn't huge by grizzly standards, but it didn't need to be. 8 feet tall and 700 pounds of stubborn, frost-tipped menace. It was a rare encounter for Maya hunters, but when it happened, it was unforgettable. Bear pelts adorned warriors. Bear claws ended lives. These weren't casual predators, they were mountains of fur and fury. Manatees and Steller's sea cow, the gentle giants of the Maya waters. The Maya? Oh, they definitely hung out with manatees. These slow-moving sea potatoes weren't just cute river buddies, they were a full-on multi-purpose package. The meat? Rich and fatty, basically ancient gourmet. The hide? Tough enough to turn into durable tools or armor-like gear. And the bones? Those ended up in sacred rituals, like prehistoric VIP passes to the spiritual world. But what's even wilder is their giant, now extinct cousin, Steller's sea cow. This aquatic bus of blubbery softness stretched a whopping 30 feet long and could weigh up to 10 tons. Imagine a swimming sofa with flippers. Peaceful, slow, and too trusting for its own good, it glided through the icy waters of the Bering Sea until humans showed up. Discovered in 1741 and hunted to extinction by 1768, this poor, gentle giant survived only 27 years after being spotted by Europeans. That's not just extinction, that's a hit and run on evolution. Giant Grebe, the lake ghost of Atitlan. Lake Atitlan, one of the most breathtaking lakes in Central America, wasn't just a scenic backdrop for the Maya, it was home to one of their most elusive companions, the giant Grebe. This flightless bird had the quiet grace of a spirit gliding through water. With dark, haunting eyes and a sleek body built for diving, it didn't just swim, it performed. It plunged like a ballerina mid-routine, slicing through the lake's depths and vanishing beneath the surface like it was casting a spell. To the Maya, the giant grebe wasn't dinner. It was sacred. Unlike other animals that ended up on the grill, this bird was more often revered than hunted. It held a kind of mystique, a symbol of the lake's soul, woven into local folklore and rituals. Its tragic extinction in the 1980s wasn't just a blow to biodiversity, it marked the disappearance of a rare bridge between worlds. This was one of the few animals known intimately by both an ancient civilization and modern biologists. When the last one slipped beneath the surface for good, it was like a living memory, vanishing into myth. Imperial woodpecker, the bird that jackhammered trees. Now imagine a woodpecker the size of a hawk. Not some chirpy little bird, but a feathered powerhouse with a blazing red mohawk and a beak that could split bark like an axe through firewood. That was the imperial woodpecker. This wasn't just a bird. It was a full-on forest percussion section with wings. Every time it slammed into a tree, it sounded like a distant war drum echoing through the pines. The Maya didn't just admire this bird, they celebrated it. Its striking black and white plumage, crowned with that crimson blaze, was worn by nobles and elite warriors, a living badge of honor. Its beak, that ended up in ceremonial tools, jewelry, or even as part of instruments. It wasn't just a bird, it was a symbol of status, power, and forest mysticism. But here's the tragic twist. The imperial woodpecker lived in old-growth pine forests, the tall ancient giants of the Sierra Madre, and when those trees started falling to axes and chainsaws, the bird didn't stand a chance. You can't clear-cut someone's entire neighborhood and expect them to send a change of address form. By the mid-20th century, the drumming stopped. The last confirmed sighting was in the 1950s. Now, just another ghost of the Maya's world, vanished into silence. Great Curacao, Maya's walking royal emblem. This wasn't just a bird. The Great Curacao was a symbol of status, of class, of don't touch. It's expensive. Nearly 3 feet tall, glossy and crowned with a curly crest, it walked with more confidence than most humans. It appeared in burials, carvings, and elite recipes. The Maya didn't just eat it, they respected it. Today, it's gone from most of its former range. Harpy eagle, the apex predator of the jungle sky. The harpy eagle wasn't a bird, it was a living missile with wings. With claws longer than grizzly bears and the ability to snatch monkeys from treetops, it ruled the canopy like a feathery overlord. For the Maya, it wasn't just a predator, it was a deity. Kings wore its feathers. Hunters risked their lives to capture them. Now, functionally extinct in most of their realm. Hippos, the tanks of the Nile. Let's head to Egypt and meet the most casually dangerous animal of all, the hippo. These tanks on legs killed more people than crocodiles, lions, or plague combined. They wrecked farms, bit off limbs, and occasionally stomped pharaohs. Narmer, Egypt's first king, a hippo supposedly killed him. Yet Egyptians still hunted them for meat and ivory-like teeth. Oryx, the wild bull of ancient Egypt. The oryx wasn't just a wild cow, it was the untamable version. Bigger, tougher, and a whole lot angrier. Egyptians hunted them for food, but over time, their numbers crashed. Gone before the Nile ever saw the first millennium. Bennu heron, the god bird of Egyptian myth. Taller than a man, with wings wide enough to block the sun, the Bennu heron was basically the spiritual mascot of ancient Egypt. linked to creation and the sun god. This bird wasn't just admired, it was worshipped. Paintings, symbols, mythology. The Bennu bird had it all. But by 1800 BC, gone. Just like the myths it once inspired. Maydum goose, the bird that only exists in art. The Maydum goose is the only animal we know about solely because of a painting. No bones, no feathers, no fossils. Just one exquisitely painted mural dubbed Egypt's Mona Lisa. Some say it's a red-breasted goose, others argue it's a lost species. Either way, it lives in art, and nowhere else. Sacred baboons, the screaming temple monkeys. Baboons in Egypt weren't just pets. They were divine companions, religious mascots, and chaotic agents of mischief. They bit, screamed, and danced. Some were even mummified. But as Egypt turned to imports and deserts expanded, the sacred baboon quietly vanished from its homeland. North African elephants, Pharaoh's war tanks. These weren't your zoo elephants. These were desert-hardened, wall-smashing tanks. Ancient Egyptians used them in war, trade, and rituals. But their ivory and love for destroying crops made them public enemy number one. By 2900 BC, gone from Egypt. Barbary lion, the true king of the desert. The Barbary lion wasn't just another cat. It was a muscle-bound desert monarch, heavier than today's lions and twice as majestic. Pharaohs kept them as pets. Warriors hunted them for glory. And when the sands swallowed their last roar, a piece of Egyptian spirit went with them. From Viking fjords to Maya jungles to Egyptian temples, humanity didn't just witness these animals. We lived with them, fought them, worshipped them, and in some cases, drove them into oblivion. These weren't background creatures in ancient stories. They were central players in human survival, religion, and legacy. If you're still watching, hit that like button, subscribe for more time-traveling animal stories, and drop a comment with which extinct creature you wish you could have seen up close. Just maybe not the hippo.